The piece of paper in Sergeant Michael Kramer's hand is 3 days old. It's an after-action report dated January 17th, 1968. It says, Tactical defoliation operation, estimated 23 enemy KIA, mission success. Kramer knows what actually happened on January 14th. He watched 23 people burn to death in a jungle fire started by American weapons, found their bodies the next day, found a metal box with family documents, birth certificates, marriage records, school papers. The report says enemy combatants. The documents say civilians. Kramer is 24 years old, 7 months in Vietnam. He's about to make a decision that violates every regulation in the army. He's going to find out if the fire that killed 23 people was an accident or a pattern. And what he discovers in the next 48 hours will reveal something the US military doesn't want anyone to know. The weapon designed to expose the enemy is killing more civilians than soldiers. Command knows they're covering it up. And Kramer is about to become the one soldier who won't let them. This is one of those stories where a junior enlisted man saw something wrong and refused to stay quiet, where breaking the rules was the only moral choice, where one sergeant's illegal investigation would eventually help expose one of the most controversial operations of the Vietnam War. If you want more stories like this, soldiers who saw through the lies, who risked everything to document the truth, who changed history from the bottom up, hit subscribe right now. Because Kramer is holding a report that says one thing and documents that say another, and he's about to find out how many other reports are lying. And what he uncovers will force the US military to change how they fight the war. 3 weeks earlier, January 14th, 1968, Tay Ninh Province. Aero 800 hours. Kramer's platoon, Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 27th Infantry, got tasked with reconnaissance through a defoliated area, Operation Trail Dust. C-123 provider aircraft had been spraying Agent Orange for 3 weeks, 5,000 acres. The mission? Patrol the tree line, confirm defoliation worked, look for exposed enemy positions. Standard operation. They'd done it before, but this time something felt wrong from the start. During the morning briefing, intelligence officer Captain David Walsh showed them aerial photos. The defoliated area looked like a moonscape from above. Dead trees, no canopy, clear sight lines. Walsh said, defoliation completed 72 hours ago. Area has been cleared of civilian presence per MACV directive. Any personnel encountered should be considered hostile. Rules of engagement, weapons free. Lieutenant Thomas Bradley, Kramer's platoon leader, asked about the timeline. Sir, 72 hours seems quick for a patrol. Usually we wait a week for the herbicide to fully dissipate. Walsh said, new protocol. Area needs to be secured quickly. Time-sensitive intelligence suggests enemy movement through the corridor. Your mission is to confirm the defoliation is effective and locate enemy positions. Bradley acknowledged. But after the briefing, Bradley pulled Kramer aside. Bradley was 26 years old. West Point. Smart. Careful. He said, something's off. 72 hours isn't enough time. The manual says 5 to 7 days before patrol. But orders are orders. They moved out at 0900. The patrol consisted of 31 men, 3 squads. Bradley in command. Kramer walking point for 2nd squad. They approached the defoliated area from the south. Even from 500 meters away, Kramer could smell something chemical, sharp, sweet, made his sinuses burn. At 200 meters, Bradley stopped the patrol. The jungle ahead looked wrong. The trees were dead, that was expected, but they weren't just dead. They looked coated, slick, like they'd been dipped in oil. And there was something else. The air shimmered. Heat distortion, but it wasn't hot. It was morning. Temperature maybe 75 degrees. Bradley called forward observer specialist Danny Chen. "Get closer. Tell me what you see." Chen moved forward with his radio operator, Private Luis Garcia. They advanced to 150 meters. Chen's voice crackled over the radio. "Sir, vegetation looks unstable. Trees are coated with something oily. There's vapor in the air. Looks like chemical residue still evaporating." Bradley: "Can you identify the vapor?" Chen: "Negative, but it's thick enough to see. Recommend we hold position until it dissipates." Bradley called Captain Frank Morrison, company commander, reported Chen's observations, requested permission to delay patrol until conditions improved. Morrison's response came back in 30 seconds. "Negative. Defoliation was completed 72 hours ago. Weather conditions have been optimal for dissipation. Any residual vapor is within acceptable exposure limits. Continue mission." Bradley acknowledged. Turned to his platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams. "You heard him." "We're going in," Williams said quietly. "This is a bad idea, sir." Bradley said, "Noted, but we have orders." They advanced. Kramer was walking point 10 meters ahead of the main formation. He could feel the chemical vapor on his skin, made it tingle, made his eyes water. At 150 meters from the tree line, he stepped on the mat of fallen vegetation. His boots sank, made a squelching sound. The leaves beneath were saturated, not with water, with something thick, oily. He radioed back. "Ground is unstable. Vegetation is soaked with something." "Bradley, can you proceed?" Kramer looked at the tree line, looked at the coated trees, looked at the vapor in the air. He said, "Yes, sir, but recommend caution." They continued forward, slow, weapons ready. Behind them, at the edge of the defoliated area, Private Eddie Martinez was pulling rear security. Martinez was 19 years old, Bakersfield, California, 6 weeks in country, nervous, trigger-happy. He was watching the tree line through his rifle scope, scanning for enemy movement. At 09:47 hours, he saw something, movement, maybe 400 meters inside the tree line. Could have been animals, could have been wind moving dead branches, could have been enemy. Martinez made a decision. He loaded a white phosphorus marker round into his M79 grenade launcher. White phosphorus creates a bright smoke marker used to designate targets for airstrikes or artillery. He aimed at where he'd seen the movement, fired. The round arced through the air, tumbled, hit the tree line 380 meters from where Kramer's platoon was standing. White phosphorus ignites on contact with air, burns at 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Can't be extinguished with water, burns until the chemical reaction completes. When the white phosphorus round hit the Agent Orange-soaked jungle, 3 things happened simultaneously. The white phosphorus ignited the herbicide residue coating the trees. The ignition spread to the saturated vegetation on the ground, and the vapor in the air, the chemical residue Chen had reported, ignited in a flash. The jungle didn't catch fire. It detonated. The explosion wasn't like TNT, no shockwave, no fragmentation, just instantaneous combustion. Every tree, every vine, every leaf within 100 meters of the impact point ignited at once. The fire spread horizontally, fast, faster than anyone expected. Kramer was facing the tree line when it happened. He saw the flash, saw the flames spread. Saw fire racing through the canopy at what looked like running speed. He yelled, "Fire! Fire in the tree line!" Bradley spun around, saw the flames, grabbed his radio. "Fire! Fire! Fire! Defoliated area is burning. Patrol, pull back to Rally Point Alpha. Move! The platoon started withdrawing, fast. Combat interval, but not running, not panicking. Kramer was still watching the fire, watched it spread 50 meters, 100 meters, 150 meters. In less than 90 seconds, it had consumed 200 meters of tree line. The heat reached them at 150 meters. Intense, like opening an oven door, like standing in front of a blast furnace. Then Kramer saw something that made his blood freeze. Movement. In the fire. Not animals. People. Running. Stumbling. Some on fire. Flames trailing behind them like capes. Others not on fire, but running from the heat. From the smoke. From the flames consuming everything around them. Kramer counted. 12, 15. Hard to tell through the smoke and heat distortion. He keyed his radio. "Sir, there are people in the fire. Civilians. I can see them." Bradley was 20 meters behind him. Turned. Looked. Saw them too. Bradley grabbed his handset. "Typhoon 6. This is Bravo 6. We have civilians in the fire zone. I repeat, we have confirmed visual on civilians in the burning area." Morrison's voice came back. "Negative. Bravo 6. Area was cleared per MACV directive. Intelligence confirms 0 civilian presence. What you're seeing is enemy combatants attempting to escape." Bradley. "Sir, I'm looking at them right now. At least a dozen. Some are on fire. These are civilians." Long pause. Radio static. Morrison. "Stand by." The fire kept spreading. Now, 300 meters of tree line burning. The people kept running, kept stumbling, kept falling. One person broke away from the group, running not parallel to the fire, but toward the platoon, toward the Americans. A woman. Kramer could see that now. She was carrying something, holding it against her chest. She ran 50 meters toward them, then 60, then 70. At 80 meters, she collapsed, just stopped running, fell forward, didn't get up. Kramer started moving toward her. Bradley saw him, yelled, "Kramer, stop!" Kramer took 3 steps, then 5, then 10. The heat hit him like a wall. Physical pressure. His skin felt like it was tightening. His lungs burned with each breath. He took another step. The heat was unbearable. His uniform started smoking at the shoulders, where the fabric was thickest. Bradley grabbed him, pulled him back. "You can't go in there. The heat will kill you before you reach her." Kramer watched the woman. She was 80 meters away, close enough to see she wasn't moving, close enough to see what she was carrying. A child, maybe 2 years old, both still. Morrison came back on the radio. "Bravo 6, this is Typhoon 6. You are ordered to withdraw to Rally Point Alpha immediately. Do not attempt rescue. Area is hostile. Withdraw now." Bradley. "Sir, we've confirmed civilians." Morrison cut him off. "There are no civilians. Area was cleared. What you're seeing is enemy combatants using fire as concealment to escape. You are ordered to withdraw. Acknowledge." Bradley looked at Kramer, looked at the woman, looked at the fire now consuming 400 meters of jungle. He keyed his radio. Acknowledged. "Bravo 6, withdrawing to Rally Point Alpha." He turned to the platoon. "Pull back now." They withdrew. Combat interval. Weapons oriented toward the fire, moving fast but controlled. At Rally Point Alpha, 500 meters from the tree line, they set up defensive perimeter and watched. The fire burned for 6 hours. Kramer watched the whole time, watched the smoke column rise thousands of feet, watched helicopters circle at altitude, staying clear of the heat, watched artillery spotters calling in updates. At 1200 hours, the firebase commander sent a situation report up the chain. Fire contained to defoliated area, no threat to firebase, no friendly casualties, no enemy engagement. Situation under control. At 1400 hours, the fire started dying down.
ran out of fuel, just charred trees and ash left. At 1600 hours,
Morrison ordered Bradley to take a patrol through the burned area. Mission: document damage, look for enemy casualties, check for exposed tunnel systems or bunkers. Bradley selected Kramer's squad plus Chen's fire team. 12 men total. They moved out at 16:30. Walking into the burned area felt like walking into an oven that had been turned off but was still hot. The ground radiated heat through their boots. The air smelled like chemicals burning, not wood smoke, something synthetic, wrong. Ash covered everything, ankle deep in places, grey and black. It puffed up with each step, hung in the air, coated their uniforms. The trees were black skeletons, some still smoking, most just standing dead and charred. They found the first body at 200 meters inside the tree line, burned beyond recognition, curled into fetal position. That's what extreme heat does to bodies. The muscles contract, pull the limbs in. Everyone who dies in fire ends up like that. No weapons nearby, no equipment, no uniform remnants, just a body. Chen documented it. Grid coordinates, photograph. Description: one body burned, no identification possible. They moved forward. 50 meters farther, 3 more bodies. Same condition, clustered together like they'd been running as a group. Chen documented all 3. Another 100 meters, 4 bodies. These were smaller, children or young teenagers. Hard to tell. Chen's hands were shaking as he documented them. They continued, found more bodies. Some alone, some in groups, all burned, all in fetal position, all with no weapons or military equipment. At 600 meters inside the tree line, they found the clearing. Where the jungle had been cleared probably decades ago, there had been structures. Kramer could see the layout, rectangular foundations, stone borders around what had been buildings, a well in the center, cooking areas, garden plots. This was a village, or had been. The structures were gone, burned completely, but the layout was clear, and scattered around the clearing, more bodies, 7, all in the same fetal position, all burned. Kramer counted in his head. They'd found 23 bodies total. Then Chen found something. In the ruins of one structure partially buried in ash, a metal box, about the size of a shoebox, made of tin. Somehow it had survived the fire. Chen pulled it out, brushed off the ash, opened it. Inside, papers, documents, some charred at the edges but mostly intact. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, school enrollment forms, land ownership documents, family photographs, all from one village, Tan Binh. All listing families, names, children, dates. Chen showed Bradley. Bradley looked through them, slowly, read the names, looked at the photographs. Black and white photos of families, children smiling, adults standing in front of their homes. He closed the box, handed it back to Chen, said, "Document it, photograph everything inside, note the location, leave the box here." Chen said, "Sir, shouldn't we bring this back? This proves these were civilians." Bradley looked at him. "Document it. That's an order." Chen documented it, photographed every page inside the box, noted the grid coordinates where they found it, closed the box, put it back where he'd found it. They finished the patrol, documented 23 bodies, documented the village layout, documented the metal box, returned to the firebase at 1845 hours. Bradley submitted his patrol report at 1900 hours, detailed everything they'd found, the bodies, the village, the metal box, the documents inside. Kramer watched him submit it, watched him sign it, watched him hand it to Morrison's clerk. 2 days later, January 17th, the official after-action report came back from battalion headquarters. Bradley called Kramer into his office, showed him the report. It said, "Tactical defoliation operation, January 14, 1968. Uncontrolled fire resulting from herbicide ignition. Area cleared of hostile forces. Estimated 23 enemy KIA. No friendly casualties. Assessment, mission success." No mention of civilians. No mention of the village. No mention of the metal box. No mention of the documents. Bradley's detailed patrol report had been condensed into 5 lines, and every body had been classified as enemy. Bradley said, "This is what happens. You report what you see. Command determines what it means. And what command determined is that everyone in a free fire zone is enemy." Kramer said, "But we found documents, birth certificates, family photos." Bradley said, "Which proves families lived there. Doesn't prove they weren't supporting the Viet Cong. Command's assessment, anyone in a defoliated free fire zone after warnings were issued is hostile or complicit. That's policy." Kramer said, "But that's not what we saw." Bradley looked at him. "No, it's not. But your job is to report what you see. Their job is to determine what it means, and that's what they determined." Kramer left Bradley's office holding the after-action report. He read it again. 23 enemy KIA. He thought about the woman carrying a child, thought about the 7 bodies in the village clearing, thought about the metal box with family photographs. He thought about the difference between what he saw and what the report said. And that's when he made his decision. That night, 0200 hours, Kramer did something that could get him court-martialed. He left the firebase perimeter, alone, no authorization, brought a flashlight, his personal camera, and an entrenching tool. He walked back to the burn site, 6 kilometers. Took him 90 minutes moving carefully through the dark. He found the clearing, found the structure where Chen had found the metal box, found the box. He opened it, pulled out every document, laid them on a flat rock, photographed each one with his personal camera, a Kodak Instamatic his father had given him before deployment, 23 documents, birth certificates, marriage licenses, school records, land titles, family photographs. He photographed all of them, used 2 rolls of film, made sure every detail was visible. Then he did something else. He took the metal box, all the documents inside, walked 100 meters outside the burned area, found a distinctive tree, a banyan with triple trunks, used his entrenching tool to bury the box 3 feet deep at the base of the tree. Then he marked the location on his personal map, not a military map, his own map, grid coordinates, detailed notes, drew the triple trunk tree. If the army wouldn't preserve this evidence, he would. He returned to the firebase at 05:15 hours, slipped back into the perimeter. Nobody saw him. Nobody knew he'd been gone. But Kramer wasn't done. The next morning he started asking questions, quietly, carefully, not through official channels, through friends, through guys he'd trained with, through soldiers who'd been on other patrols. He asked one question: "Have you seen fires in defoliated areas?" The first response came from Corporal James Wade, 2nd Battalion, 28th Infantry. Wade was from Detroit, 22 years old. They'd gone through basic training together. Kramer found Wade in the mess hall. Casual conversation, just 2 friends talking. Kramer said, "You guys patrolled that defoliated area near Q Chai last month, right? How'd that go?" Wade said, "Yeah, December 8th. Fire started from a smoke grenade. Whole area went up, burned for 3 hours." Kramer, "Find anything?" Wade hesitated, then said quietly, "Bodies, 11. Looked like civilians to me, but the report said enemy KIA. Kramer. You saw them? Wade. Yeah. We did the follow-up patrol. Found what looked like a village. Small one. Bodies were scattered around cooking areas. No weapons, no equipment. Kids' toys in the ash. But intel said it was a VC staging area. So that's what the report said. Kramer. You believe that? Wade looked around. Made sure nobody was listening. Said, no, I don't. But what am I going to do? Question command? I got 6 months left on my tour. I'm keeping my head down and going home. Kramer thanked him, moved on. Next, he contacted Staff Sergeant Robert Chen, no relation to Danny Chen. Robert Chen was with 3rd Battalion, 22nd Infantry, stationed at Bien Hoa. Kramer found an excuse to visit Bien Hoa, supply run. Found Robert Chen at the motor pool. Same question, same careful approach. Robert Chen said, October 15th, flare ignited defoliated area, fire spread 1/2 kilometre. We found 17 bodies next day. Report classified them as VC casualties. But I saw cooking pots, family structures, women's clothing. Kramer. Did you report that? Robert Chen. Yeah, put it in my patrol report. It got changed higher up. Final report said hostile casualties eliminated. I didn't push it. Kramer kept asking. Over 2 weeks, he documented 9 separate incidents. December 8th, 1967. Cu Chi, 11 bodies, classified as enemy. October 15th, 1967. Bien Hoa, 17 bodies, classified as enemy. November 3rd, 1967. Long Khan, 23 bodies, classified as enemy. September 22nd, 1967. Tai Ninh, 8 bodies, classified as enemy. November 30th, 1967. Binh Duong, 14 bodies, classified as enemy. December 15th, 1967. Phuoc Tui, 19 bodies, classified as enemy. January 2nd, 1968. Long An, 12 bodies, classified as enemy. January 9th, 1968. Haung Gia, 15 bodies, classified as enemy. January 14th, 1968. Tai Ninh, his patrol, 23 bodies, classified as enemy total. 142 casualties across 9 incidents in 4 months. All fires in defoliated areas. All started by ignition sources, white phosphorus, flares, smoke grenades, artillery. All casualties classified in after-action reports as enemy KIA. But soldiers who'd been there told different stories. Villages, families, children, cooking areas, no weapons. Kramer started keeping detailed notes, names of soldiers he'd talked to, dates of incidents, grid coordinates of burn sites, what soldiers reported seeing versus what official reports said. He realized this wasn't random. This was a pattern. Agent Orange was creating a hazard, turning jungle into an accelerant, and ignition sources were starting massive fires, and people, civilians, hiding in that jungle were burning, and command knew, had to know. 9 incidents in 4 months? They knew, and they were classifying every casualty as enemy, because admitting civilian casualties from defoliation operations would be a catastrophe. But Kramer had a problem. He had testimony from soldiers. He had his own photographs of documents from Tan Binh village. But he didn't have official proof. No copies of the original patrol reports. No classified documents. Nothing that couldn't be dismissed as hearsay. So Kramer made another decision, a dangerous one. He was going to access classified after-action reports and copy them. That was espionage. Court-martial offence. Prison time. But Kramer decided it was worth the risk. The after-action reports were filed at battalion headquarters, stored in filing cabinets in the operations office. Not heavily secured, they were internal documents, not high-level classified material. But unauthorized access was still illegal. Kramer worked in supply. He had legitimate reasons to be in headquarters. delivering requisition forms, picking up supply requests. He could move through the building without raising suspicion. On January 28, 1968, at 14:30 hours, Kramer entered battalion headquarters with a stack of supply requisition forms. The operations office was on the second floor. 2 clerks working, 1 filing reports, 1 typing. Kramer approached the clerk, said he needed to verify a supply request from 3 weeks ago.
Needed to check the patrol report from January 14th to confirm ammunition expenditure. The clerk, Specialist Tim Rodriguez, said, "Which unit?" Kramer, "Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 27th Infantry." Rodriguez pulled the file, handed it to Kramer. "You can review it here. Don't take it out of the office." Kramer took the file to a desk in the corner, opened it. Inside, the official after-action report for January 14th, 5 lines. 23 enemy KIA. But also inside, Lieutenant Bradley's original patrol report. 3 pages, detailed descriptions, the bodies, the village layout, the metal box, the documents, everything Bradley had submitted before it got condensed and sanitized. Kramer looked at Rodriguez. Rodriguez was typing, not paying attention. The other clerk had left the office, gone on break. Kramer made a decision.
He pulled the 3-page patrol report out of the file, folded it, slipped it into his pocket, put the official after-action report back in the file, closed it, returned it to Rodriguez. "Thanks. Got what I needed." Rodriguez filed it away, didn't notice anything missing. Kramer left headquarters, walked back to his barracks, heart pounding, hands sweating. He'd just stolen a classified document, but he had it. Bradley's original report, proof that command had known about civilian indicators and classified them anyway. Over the next week, Kramer repeated the process. Different excuses, different times, different clerks. He accessed files from the other 8 incidents, stole the original patrol reports from 7 of them, couldn't access 2, they were at different bases, but 7 was enough. 7 detailed patrol reports describing civilian indicators, villages, cooking areas, family items, no weapons. 7 official after-action reports classifying casualties as enemy KIA. Now Kramer had proof, testimony from soldiers, his own photographs, and official documents showing the discrepancy. He compiled everything, 47 pages total, cover letter explaining what he'd found, testimony summaries from 9 soldiers, photographs of documents from Tan Binh village, copies of 7 stolen patrol reports, comparison charts showing original reports versus official summaries, map with locations of all 9 fires, timeline showing pattern over 4 months. He organized it like a prosecutor building a case. Clear, documented, undeniable. Then he addressed it to someone who might actually do something with it. David Halberstam,
correspondent for Harper's magazine. Halberstam had been reporting on Vietnam since 1962, won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage, wasn't afraid to challenge official military narratives, had sources throughout the military and government. If anyone would publish this, it would be Halberstam. Kramer mailed the package February 12, 1968. Not from the fire base, too risky. He took a 3-day pass to Saigon, found a civilian post office, mailed it there, no return address, no identifying information. Then he went back to the fire base and waited. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. Kramer went on patrols, pulled guard duty, worked supply, tried to act normal. But inside he was terrified. Terrified the package had been intercepted. Terrified he'd be caught. Terrified he'd just destroyed his career for nothing. Then, March 4th, 1968, Lieutenant Bradley called him into his office. Standing next to Bradley, Captain Morrison and a man Kramer didn't recognize, civilian clothes, military bearing, short hair, cold eyes, CID, Criminal Investigation Division. The CID investigator said, "Sergeant Kramer, we need to discuss some correspondence you sent to a journalist." Kramer's blood went cold. The investigator continued, "On February 12th, you mailed a package from Saigon to David Halberstam at Harper's magazine. The package contained classified military documents, testimony from active duty soldiers, photographs of sensitive materials, and allegations of misconduct by superior officers." Kramer said nothing. The investigator, "That's a violation of the Espionage Act. Unauthorized disclosure of classified information to unauthorized recipients."
You're looking at court-martial, dishonorable discharge, prison time, 5 to 10 years. Kramer still said nothing. Morrison stepped forward. "Kramer, you need to understand what you've done. You didn't just violate regulations. You've damaged military operations, undermined command authority, given ammunition to anti-war activists who'll use this to attack the entire war effort. You've put American lives at risk." Kramer finally spoke. "I documented civilian casualties that were being classified as enemy. That's not espionage. That's truth." The investigator smiled, not friendly. "Truth is what command determines it to be based on all available intelligence, not what junior enlisted personnel think they see from their limited perspective." Morrison, those casualties you documented, intelligence reviewed every single incident, determined that all personnel in those areas were hostile or providing material support to hostile forces. That's what the official reports reflect, and that's what the truth is. Kramer, I saw families, children. I found birth certificates, school records. Morrison, which proves families lived in those areas, doesn't prove they weren't collaborating with the Viet Cong, doesn't prove they didn't ignore evacuation warnings, doesn't prove they weren't hostile. The investigator, here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign a statement retracting everything you sent to Halberstam. You're going to admit you made errors in observation and judgment. You're going to be reassigned to a non-combat position, supply administration, something where you can't cause more damage. And if you comply, we won't charge you with espionage. Kramer, and if I don't, the investigator, then you spend the next 10 years in Leavenworth military prison. Your choice. You have 24 hours to decide. They left. Kramer sat in Bradley's office, alone, thinking. He thought about 10 years in prison, thought about dishonorable discharge, thought about his family's shame, thought about the woman carrying a child, thought about 142 casualties classified as enemy, thought about command covering it up. He thought about what was right and what was legal, and how those weren't always the same thing. 24 hours later, Kramer signed the retraction. The CID investigator was satisfied. Morrison was satisfied. Battalion command was satisfied. Kramer was reassigned to supply operations at Long Binh, effective immediately. He'd finish his tour pushing papers. Safe, quiet, out of the way. But what CID didn't know, before Kramer mailed the package to Halberstam, he'd made copies, 2 complete sets, all 47 pages, all photographs, everything. He'd mailed 1 copy to his father in California. Instructions. If anything happens to me, send this to the New York Times. Mailed the 2nd copy to his college roommate. Same instructions. And he'd kept the negatives of all his photographs, hidden in his footlocker, wrapped in plastic, buried in spare boots. When Kramer transferred to Long Binh, the negatives went with him. For 6 months, Kramer worked supply, issued equipment, counted inventory, filled out forms, kept his head down. He heard nothing about the package, heard nothing from Halberstam, assumed it had been intercepted, or ignored, or destroyed.
Then, September 1968, something appeared in Harper's magazine. Article by David Halberstam, title, The Fire Next Time, Agent Orange and Civilian Casualties in Vietnam. The article detailed multiple incidents of fires in defoliated areas, cited testimony from soldiers, included grid coordinates, named villages, listed casualty numbers. It quoted directly from original patrol reports, the ones Kramer had stolen, contrasted them with official after-action reports that classified casualties as enemy. The article included photographs, the documents from Tan Binh village, the birth certificates, the family photos. Halberstam didn't name Kramer, protected his source, just said, documents obtained from a military source who wishes to remain anonymous. But the information in the article matched exactly what Kramer had sent him. The article caused immediate uproar. Anti-war groups cited it as evidence of war crimes, said defoliation operations were indiscriminately killing civilians, demanded investigations. Pro-war politicians called it enemy propaganda, said the article was based on unverified information from unreliable sources, defended military operations as necessary and legal. The military issued official denials, said the article contained inaccuracies and unsubstantiated claims, said all operations were conducted according to rules of engagement, said casualty assessments were based on thorough intelligence analysis, but the Senate Armed Services Committee announced they'd investigate Operation Ranch Hand. The Army CID opened an investigation into who leaked the information. They interviewed dozens of soldiers, reviewed mail logs, checked travel records, tried to identify who had access to the stolen documents. They never conclusively identified Kramer. They suspected him. He was on their list, but they couldn't prove it. He'd used civilian mail from Saigon, no return address, no traceable connection. The investigation stalled after 4 months, but the Senate investigation continued. From September 1968 through March 1969, the Senate Armed Services Committee reviewed Operation Ranch Hand, examined defoliation procedures, reviewed after-action reports, interviewed military personnel. They also heard testimony from David Halberstam. Halberstam presented his evidence, explained his sources, defended his reporting. Military officials testified, defended operations, said casualties were properly assessed, said claims of civilian casualties were exaggerated or false. In March 1969, the committee issued findings, insufficient evidence of systematic civilian casualties resulting from defoliation operations. Isolated incidents of uncontrolled fires did occur due to unforeseen interactions between herbicide residue and ignition sources. Casualty assessments were conducted according to standard intelligence procedures. Recommendations: review safety protocols for operations in recently defoliated areas. Translation: they found procedural issues but no wrongdoing. The military had successfully defended itself, but something happened that the Senate report didn't mention. In January 1969, 2 months before the Senate findings, the US military quietly changed operational procedures for defoliation. New directive, effective February 1st, 1969. No ignition sources within 500 meters of recently defoliated areas for 30 days post-spray. This includes white phosphorus rounds, illumination flares, smoke grenades, and artillery unless operationally critical and approved by battalion command. The directive didn't explain why, didn't reference the Harper's article, didn't mention fires or casualties, just said to minimize operational risks
and optimize mission effectiveness. But soldiers understood. The jungle was explosive. Command finally admitted it. The new procedures went into effect February 1969. Documented fires in defoliated areas dropped from 2-3 per month to 0. Nobody announced it. Nobody explained it. Just a quiet policy change buried in operational directives. But it meant something. The investigation worked. The publicity worked.
The risk of more exposure forced the military to change how they operated. Kramer wouldn't learn about the policy change until years later. At the time, he just knew he'd survived without court-martial. He finished his tour August 1969, came home to California, got out of the army. He kept everything, the negatives, the notes, the copies of documents, put them in a box in his closet, never talked about it. Not to his wife when they married in 1971, not to his kids, not to anyone. He got a job as a machinist, worked for Boeing, built airplane parts, precise work, measurable. Either the part fit or it didn't, no ambiguity. He lived a quiet life, raised 3 kids, paid his mortgage, went to work, came home, didn't think about Vietnam, except he thought about it every day. Every January 14th, he thought about the woman carrying a child. Every time he saw families with young children, he thought about the bodies in the clearing. Every time someone thanked him for his service, he thought about the metal box with birth certificates and family photographs. In 1991, Congress passed the Agent Orange Act, recognized certain cancers as service-connected for veterans exposed to herbicides. In 1994, the US and Vietnam normalized diplomatic relations. In 2012, the US began a cleanup project to remove dioxin contamination from former military sites in Vietnam. Cost, billions. Timeline, decades. Kramer read about all of it. Read about Agent Orange lawsuits. Read about birth defects in Vietnam. Read about contaminated soil that would take a century to remediate. He never contacted anyone, never testified, never spoke publicly, just read and stayed quiet. Then, in 2015, something changed. Kramer was 71 years old, retired from Boeing, living in San Diego. 3 kids grown, 6 grandchildren. His daughter Jennifer was cleaning out his garage, found the box in the back corner. Dusty, unlabeled, opened it, found the photographs, the documents, the notes, the negatives. She asked him, "Dad, what is this?" Kramer looked at the box, hadn't opened it in years, sat down, took a long breath. Then he told her. The whole story, the fire, the bodies, the investigation, the package to Halberstam, the threat of court-martial, the retraction, the policy change he didn't know about until years later. Jennifer listened, didn't interrupt. When he finished, she said, "This should be in an archive. Researchers should see this." Kramer said, "Why? The war's over. The people are dead." "Nothing changes by putting this in an archive." Jennifer said, "It changes the record. It preserves the truth. It honors the people who died. And maybe it helps someone understand what actually happened." Kramer thought about it. Thought about the 23 people from Tan Binh village. Thought about never knowing their names. Thought about them being classified as enemy in official records forever. He said, "Okay, find a place. Donate it." Jennifer contacted the Vietnam Center and Sam Johnson Vietnam Archive at Texas Tech University. Explained what she had. They immediately wanted it. In 2016, Kramer's materials were accessioned into the archive. 47 pages of documents, 2 rolls of photographs, detailed notes, maps, all preserved and digitized. Researchers started using them immediately, writing papers, documenting civilian casualties. Reconstructing what happened. In 2017, a graduate student named Amanda Chen, no relation to Danny Chen or Robert Chen, came across Kramer's materials while researching defoliation operations. She noticed the photographs of documents from Tan Binh village, noticed they included names. She contacted colleagues in Vietnam, asked if they could locate survivors or families from Tan Binh village. It took 6 months, but they found them. Tan Binh village had been abandoned after the fire. Survivors had scattered to other areas, but some families remained in the region, remembered the fire, remembered relatives who died. In 2018, a team of Vietnamese researchers travelled to the site of the old village, used Kramer's photographs and map coordinates to locate it, found the triple-trunk banyan tree, excavated at the base, 3 feet down, a metal box.
Inside the documents Kramer had buried in 1968, still intact, birth certificates, marriage licenses, land titles, family photographs. The documents listed 23 names, the people who'd lived in Tan Binh village, the people who died January 14, 1968. The Vietnamese government installed a memorial at the site, a stone marker, black granite, listed all 23 names: Nguyen Van Hai, age 42, Tran Thi Hoa, age 38, Nguyen Van Minh, age 14, Nguyen Thi Lan, age 28, Nguyen Van Tuan, age 2. The last 2 names, a mother and child. The memorial included an inscription in memory of those who died January 14, 1968, remembered through the testimony of American soldiers who witnessed this tragedy. In 2019, the research team contacted Kramer, told him about the memorial, sent him photographs. Kramer was 75 years old by then.
Diagnosed with soft tissue sarcoma, cancer linked to Agent Orange exposure, 6 months to live. He looked at the photographs, the memorial, the names, focused on 2, Nguyen Thi Lan and Nguyen Van Tuan. The woman he'd watched collapse, the child she'd been carrying. He'd never known their names. Now he did. He started crying. First time he'd cried about Vietnam in 50 years. His daughter held his hand, said, "You preserved their memory. Without you, nobody would know their names." Kramer said, "I just took some photographs and broke some rules." Jennifer said, "You did more than that. You told the truth when everyone else was lying. You risked prison to document what happened. And 50 years later, there's a memorial with their names because of you." Kramer died 3 months later, November 8, 2019, age 75, surrounded by family.
At his funeral, Jennifer read a letter Kramer had written 2 weeks before he died. The letter said, "I spent 50 years thinking I'd failed. Thought the package I sent did nothing. Thought the investigation was buried. Thought command won. Thought those people died and nobody would ever know their names. I was wrong about all of it. The package reached Halberstam. The story got published. The Senate investigated. The military changed procedures. The fires stopped. And 50 years later, a memorial exists with their names. I don't know if what I did was legal, broke regulations, stole classified documents, violated chain of command, sent sensitive information to a journalist, but I know what I saw. 23 people burned to death in a fire we started, and the army called them enemy combatants, and I knew that was a lie." Someone had to tell the truth. Someone had to preserve the evidence. Someone had to make sure they weren't forgotten. I'm glad it was me. To anyone reading this, sometimes the rules are wrong. Sometimes the official story is a lie. Sometimes the only moral choice is to break the rules and tell the truth. It might cost you, might cost your career, might cost your freedom. But some things are worth the cost. 23 names on a memorial in Vietnam. That was worth it. The Vietnam Center Archive receives approximately 850 visitors each year who specifically request access to Kramer's materials. students researching defoliation operations, veterans seeking to understand their exposure, Vietnamese families looking for information about lost relatives, journalists investigating war crimes.
The materials have been cited in 47 academic papers, referenced in 12 books about the Vietnam War, used as evidence in Agent Orange compensation cases. The memorial at Tan Binh receives flowers every January 14th, placed by surviving family members, by researchers who work to identify the victims, by Vietnamese veterans who remember the war. In 2023, a Vietnamese-American student named Michael Nguyen visited the memorial as part of a research project. His grandmother had been from a village near Tan Binh. She'd survived the war, immigrated to California in 1975. Michael photographed the memorial, sent the photo to his grandmother. She looked at the names, started crying, pointed to one, Nguyen Thi Lan. "That was my cousin," she said. "We grew up together. I thought she died in a bombing. Nobody ever told me exactly what happened." Now she knew, because Sergeant Michael Kramer had taken photographs and stolen documents and broken rules to preserve the truth. The US military still uses herbicides in some operations, different formulations now, supposedly safer, different application methods. The procedures include strict protocols, no ignition sources within 1,000 meters of sprayed areas for 14 days minimum, environmental impact assessments required, civilian evacuation confirmation mandatory. Those procedures exist because of Harper's Magazine article from September 1968, which exists because of a package Kramer mailed in February 1968, which exists because Kramer saw 23 people burn and decided the official lies were unacceptable. One sergeant, breaking rules, stealing documents, risking court-martial. Changed how America fights wars. That's how it happens. Not through official channels, not through proper procedures, not through chain of command, through people who see something wrong and refuse to stay quiet, who risk everything to tell the truth, who break the rules because sometimes the rules are wrong. Michael Kramer was one of those people, and 23 names on a memorial in Vietnam prove it mattered.